We are all a part of culture, but what exactly is it, and how does the MCAT expect us to define it? My name is Brad Ackerson, and welcome to the MCAT Science Review video on culture. We will begin with a general overview of what culture is, followed by a description of both material and symbolic culture and their differences. We will then talk about how cultures interact and how that leads to social groups, and we will finish by delving into the relationship between culture and evolution. Our learning goal for this video is to identify what cultures are, the things that shape them, and how they are maintained. Keep in mind that this video is about human culture as it applies to sociology and not cell culture. Our learning goal will enable us to answer MCAT-style questions such as this one about non-material culture. With that, let's get cultured. The definition of culture is broad and inclusive. Beliefs, behaviors, actions, and characteristics, anything that defines a people. This definition, however, is unique to humans and can be learned from time with a society of people. In other words, it is not something we inherit genetically or instinctively, but something that we learn by exposure. If culture is the entire lifestyle of a given group, the types of culture that scientists study can be broken down into two categories, material and symbolic. Material culture consists of objects, while symbolic culture is more the ideas a culture holds. Note that symbolic culture is also fittingly referred to as non-material culture. Again, material culture is defined by physical objects that a society values. Think of archaeologists and their artifacts. We can learn about societies based on the meaning that they give certain objects. This includes clothing, cookware, temples, jewelry, and other things like that. A perfect example in our own culture is the American flag, which we keep from touching the ground in reverence for what it represents: liberty, unity, and sacrifice. The Washington Monument, wedding rings, and even birthday cakes are also considered examples of material culture. Symbolic culture is concerned with beliefs and ideas, not material objects. This not only includes ways of thinking, but also ways of behaving. Communication is an important piece of symbolic culture and will be explained shortly. Songs are a great example of symbolic culture. For example, the Star Wars theme reminds us of a pivotal moment in cinematic history and represents the battle between good and evil. Those famous words by Julius Caesar, "I came, I saw, I conquered," are symbolic of total domination. These pervasive themes in a culture are used to bind people together. While this poster of Uncle Sam in itself is an example of material culture, the idea of Uncle Sam is a symbol of patriotism and pride. Two categories of symbolic culture are norms and rituals. Social norms are like rules. They govern proper conduct. For example, bowing in the Japanese culture. It is easy to offend others when we do not adhere to these norms, and that reflects values of our culture. Other examples include shaking hands, being courteous to other cars on the road, and even the clothing that we are expected to wear at a funeral. Notice how different cultures have different social norms. Bowing and shaking hands serve more or less the same purpose, a respectful way of greeting one another. Now, rituals are different. These are formal ceremonies that generally include objects, mandates, or other specific behaviors. Examples include the Jewish Passover Seder, the quinceañera from Latin America, and even wedding ceremonies, both religious and secular. They involve specific objects like an exchange of wedding rings and specific behavioral expectations like what to wear. Of all the symbolic symbols, language is the most highly developed. It takes many forms, but the key is that it is governed by rules that can be learned and reproduced. Connotations are where the true symbolic value of language lies because of the underlying or implicit meanings. For example, boy and man refer to a young or mature male respectively. However, they may have very different connotations depending on the context. For example, calling your friend a boy because he isn't manly enough to go cliff diving with you. The point is that language enables us to share thoughts, feelings, and experiences, and therefore transmit our culture to others. Our last examples of symbolic culture that we will discuss are values and beliefs. Medicine is an extremely diverse environment, and a solid understanding of values and beliefs is crucial to its success. Values are what we deem important and dictate our ethical principles. They are often responsible for our behaviors. For example, if we value philanthropy, we may donate to charity. If we value patriotism, we may be motivated to enlist, or if we value education, we save money for it. It follows then that values change as populations change. For example, when going from times of prosperity to economic hardship, what someone deems important financially may change, leading to a change in value and behavior. Beliefs are what we accept to be the truth, for example, religion. Contrast this to people who are not religious and believe this to be truth. Another example, we may have different beliefs about what inspires doctors to practice medicine, some believing that they do so out of love for their patients, and others believing that they do so for the love of money. Again, understanding and respecting beliefs will be very important to your future practice of medicine, as even what a patient believes about you can affect the way you treat them and the way they accept that treatment. This is why it will appear on test day. We have alluded to the fact that cultures can change and morph. Often this is a result of interactions between cultures. Assimilation is the process by which one culture begins to resemble another. Assimilation generally takes place in order for someone to be accepted into a new culture. In the case of immigration, for example, immigrants often feel compelled to assimilate into the new culture in order to find employment and friends. On the other side of the coin is multiculturalism, where multiple cultures exist within a society. It creates a need to be both inclusive and respectful of the differences that exist between cultures. As we see with assimilation and multiculturalism, most people need to feel a sense of belonging. Social groups help us to achieve this. These are groups of two or more people that identify and interact. While individuals maintain their identity, they are able to share many things with their peers. Couples and families are examples of social groups, but keep in mind that you do not have to be intimately related to form a social group. Sports teams, churches, and even circles of friends are examples as well. Subcultures are a type of social group that generally have an interest or ideology that separate them from the culture as a whole. For example, in the broad group of music fans, we may find people who identify only with country, bluegrass, or rock and roll. Notice how these groups can both overlap and be completely contained within one another. Our last topic is how evolution is related to culture. The expression of genes changes the course of evolution, and cultural differences can drive this expression through natural selection. The key is that different cultures require different abilities for survival. For example, Northern Europeans developed a tolerance for lactose over a short period of time because they began consuming large amounts of cow milk when domesticating cattle became a part of their culture. Now, this was relatively short in terms of evolution, thousands of years instead of millions. In this way, the culture of domestication actually influenced the genetic makeup of humans. It is amazing to think that our culture can have an effect on our genetic makeup. Let's see how the MCAT will test these concepts. Read and answer this first question. The correct answer is D. Review the differences between assimilation and multiculturalism if this question was difficult for you. Answer this next question on non-material culture. If you put C, then you are correct. Remember, non-material culture is synonymous with symbolic culture. Therefore, Roman numeral number 1, the physical object, is out, leaving the Greek pantheon, the gods of Greek mythology, and free speech. Here are the main points from this video. Culture is what defines a group and is broken down into material culture, the physical objects, and symbolic culture, including beliefs, ideals, rituals, and language. Assimilation is the process of two cultures coming together, and multiculturalism is the phenomenon of two cultures existing in the same society. Understanding and appreciating culture will truly make you a better physician. Best of luck!